Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Iyun Shulchan Aruch. Today is Siman Nuntet 59. We talk about Bircas Kriyashma today. I want to talk about Halacha Daled, Sif Daled over here, where even though it's clear that after the first bracha of Bircas Kriyashma in the morning, you're supposed to say Amen. You're supposed to finish your bracha before the Shliach Tzibur and say Amen to the bracha of the Shliach Tzibur. When it comes to the bracha of Ahava Rabba, the recommendation of the Mishnah Berurah is that you should finish exactly with the Shliach Tzibur, so you shouldn't be forced to answer Amen. Because it's a machlokas whether you can answer Amen or not, because what's the problem with answering Amen? Because I have to, because Ahava Rabba is potentially a Bircas HaMitzvah for the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. It's the bracha before Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is a mitzvah. It's a Bircas HaMitzvah. Between a Bircas HaMitzvah, you're not supposed to be mafsik. If it was Bircas Shevach V'Adah, just praising Hashem, because there's no Inyan of hefsik. But if it's a Bircas HaMitzvah, it is. So, the accepted psak halacha seems to be that from the Mishnah Berurah that if you do finish early, you could answer Amen. It's not considered a hefsek. It's what the Ramah says. I in the Kaman Simon Samach Aleph. It's not considered a hefsek. I have a different opinion. I really believe that it is considered a hefsek, and I'll tell you why in a second. I think the reason is because, like we said before in Hilchos Bircas HaTorah in Simon Mem Zayin 47. What is the halacha if you didn't say Bircas HaTorah in the morning and you just started davening and you said Ahava Rabba and you said Kriya Shema? So the halacha there is it's supposed to learn after davening. After davening is over, you're supposed to learn. What about if you didn't learn after davening? So it's a suffix whether you're actually Yotzei, because you're Yotzei, because maybe Ahava Rabba, because maybe Kriya Shema is Limud Torah, and Ahava Rabba, both Rabba Yisrael, sounds eerily familiar, eerily similar to Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim, right? Bocher B'Amal Yisrael B'Ava. Hashem chose us. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Minasal Anasar. Bracha Hashem Noseina Torah. The last bracha of Bircas Kriya Shema, the best bracha of Bircas Kriya Shema, was it's a bracha d'oraisa according to everybody. So there's a bracha of Bircas Kriya of Bircas HaTorah. So here also it's Bircas HaTorah, and Kriya Shema, as I explained yesterday, is actually a mitzvah of Limud Torah. It's not a separate mitzvah. Kriya Shema is not a mitzvah of Kriya Shema. It's a mitzvah of Limud Torah. However, there's two mitzvahs of Limud Torah. There's a mitzvah of Limud Torah Shebachtav and a mitzvah of Limud Torah Shebal Peh, and they're two separate mitzvahs. In fact, Kriya Shema talks about, it's called Kriyat Shema, right? The recitation of Shema, like Kriyas Torah, reading from the Torah. What are you reading from? You're reading 3 prakim from the Torah Shebachtav, from the Bible. You're reading 3 prakim from the Bible. That's what you're reading from. So that's Torah Shebachtav, and the bracha of Ahava Rabba is really, if you didn't say the bracha, you're supposed to say the bracha before davening Bircas HaTorah. But if you didn't say that, you're Yotzei b'di'evid with Ahava Rabba, because Ahava Rabba is a Bircas HaMitzvah. I think it is. I don't think it's a Bircas HaMitzvah. It's a Bircas HaMitzvah. And by saying Kriya Shema, even if I didn't learn afterward, the post can recommend learning afterwards, but I don't think you have to learn afterwards. I think Kriya Shema is exactly that. By Bircas HaTorah, there's 2 brachas we make, right? There's a bracha Lasok B'divrei Torah, right? Which I mentioned before, is talking about Torah Shebal Peh. You're supposed to always be thinking about the halachas that are pertinent to your day, pertinent to now. Osek B'divrei Torah, you're always engaged in Divrei Torah. Dvarim are not necessarily dibur. It means your thoughts also. There's a mitzvah to always think in Torah. There's also a mitzvah to be koveitim la Torah. How do you reconcile them? One's Torah Shebachtav, and one is Torah Shebal Peh. Torah Shebachtav, like the Gemara says, Yotzei Kriya Shema Shachris v'Arvis. You're reading from Torah Shebachtav. Torah Shebal Peh, which is to be osik with Torah. The point of Torah is to always think about Torah, to do the proper things in your life, do the proper cheshbon nefesh, do the proper things in your life. That you're always supposed to be thinking of. And therefore, the halacha is, when it comes to Bircas HaTorah before davening, right, and you said 2 brachas, even if you had a hefsek in between, you're still Yotzei. Even if you didn't say something afterwards, you're still Yotzei. Why are you still Yotzei over there? The reason you're Yotzei over there is because you say 2 brachas. You said 1 bracha on the Torah Shebachtav, 1 bracha on the Torah Shebal Peh. So even there's a hefsek, you didn't say Torah Shebachtav afterwards, you didn't say Birchas Kohanim, Baruch Hashem Yishmerecha, still, your thoughts are probably involved in their Torah. Most people are thinking, what's the proper thing to do now? What's the right thing to do? Most people want to do the right thing. Most people aren't Rishayim Gemurim. They're always looking to do the wrong thing. So their thoughts are always about in Divrei Torah. Whether you're thinking about which newspaper to read after davening, or you're thinking about which food I'm going to eat for breakfast, or you're thinking about, how many times should I watch SportsCenter this morning? or you're thinking about how many stocks I should sell or I should buy, or does it make sense to go for the stock options? These are things you would think they're not Divrei Torah, but they are Divrei Torah because all these things are making the right decision. Divrei Torah is not necessarily confined to actually learning the words of the Torah. Torah Sheba'al Peh. The oral Torah is supposed to be in your mind. That's what the Vilna Gaon says, that even if you want to just think about Divrei Torah, he says you have to make a Bircas Torah in the morning. Why? Not because even though we say here is Lav Gedibur Dami, thinking is not like speaking. It doesn't make a difference. The Torah Sheba'al Peh, even just thinking about making decisions, that's what Torah Sheba'al Peh is. That's the essence of Torah Sheba'al Peh. People assume it's learning Talmud Bava, learning Daf Yomi, but it's more than that. It's everything. All the thoughts you do, as long as you're on the right track and you're making the right decisions, that's Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's Divrei L'asok b'Divrei Torah. Even thoughts about it are considered good enough. So even though you're mafsik, you had thoughts about what the right thing to do is. So even if you ask for the salt, we'll talk about asking for the salt after washing the Yadayim before making a bracha on Lecha Mishnah on Shabbos. Even if you any hefsek, you thought about something before you said something, so it's okay. However, when it comes to Ahava Rabba over here, right, this is just the second bracha of Bircas Kriyas Shema, which is Sher Bach Rabbanu B'Kol Minaslanos Torah So Baruch Hashem Nosein Torah. That's Torah Shebachtav, right? That second bracha is Torah Shebachtav. So in the morning you said two brachas. So even though you had a hefsek, you had no Torah Shebachtav, you didn't read from the Bible, but you still had Lasuk B'Divrei Torah. You hear Gisa B'Yom V'Layla. But when it comes to Kriyas Shema, you just make one bracha, and that bracha is on Torah Shebachtav. And how do you do that? You have to say Kriyas Shema right after that, which is Torah Shebachtav. 3 prakim from Torah Shebachtav. So therefore, I would say you can't have a hefsek between them. But most people don't have a hefsek. So if you say Amen to the person's bracha, maybe it would be a hefsek, and you shouldn't do that. And therefore, the halacha also should be that as long as you didn't say Amen after the bracha, and you just went right into Kriyas Shema, you'd be Yotzei b'di'evid Birchas HaTorah because you said Kriyas Shema. And we're going to see mitzvahs midoraisa. We'll see is shrichas kavanah or not shrichas kavanah, but assume you had kavanah for the mitzvah, so you're Yotzei the mitzvah of limud Torah Shebachtav. So you're Yotzei right away, immediately. So you don't have to learn technically after davening. I would say you don't have to learn it technically after davening. And I would say if you made a hefsek, it doesn't help learn it right after davening. It's already ruined it. It is a Bircas mitzvah. It's a Bircas mitzvah of Torah Shebachtav, and that's why you say Kriyas Shema right after, which is the mitzvah. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.